If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
Great to have your company, and I can hear Dr. David Richards in the background. Obviously, he's removing an organ or something. I can hear that crunching and everything out with the chainsaw. I mean, he's a very tender, caring, loving doctor. He's worse than a dentist. He's worse than a dentist, let me tell you. No, he's not. Before we get into David Richards, a couple of things. And we are talking to David about, it's basically free speech and our rights and all sorts of those things. If you're in the States, you probably would be shocked at this. This is a lady. Now, she wanted to withdraw some of her money, and the bank said, "What for?" And she said, "I'm getting my house built," or something like that, "and I need to draw out X amount of dollars." And they said, "No, you can't. We don't, we won't allow that. We're going to keep your money to protect you." And she said, "But I need to pay them." No. So have a look at this. This is if you're talking about what's on its way, well, this is here already, but you can see how the whole banking system is going to shut down along with government and all the other bad eggs. They're going to control our lives down to the last degree. And we'll play also Julie Inman Grant, magnificent person she's not, and how they're going to we will be surveilled beyond your wildest of dreams in Australia. Cam, can you play bank?
Okay, I'm bloody furious right now. I just left the bank, CBA, and I went to withdraw $8,500. The lady at the teller goes, "What's the purpose of your withdrawal?" I said, "I'm building." And she goes, "Okay, fine." She gave me my money, and I go, "Next week, I want to withdraw another $20,000 cash." And she goes, "Okay, you can place the order," because I know larger amounts of cash withdrawals you need to order in advance. And she goes, "Again, what's the purpose of your withdrawal?" I go, "I'm building." And she goes, "Okay, do you have invoices?" I go, "No, I don't have invoices because I haven't paid them, obviously, but I have quotes." And she goes, "Okay, make sure you bring your quotes." And I was like, "Okay, but what if I don't have quotes?" And she goes, "Then you won't be able to withdraw your money." She basically said, "You have to give us proof or a reason." I go, "I've given you a reason. I'm building and I like to pay my tradies in cash." And she goes, "Yeah, that's not good enough. We need proof." I go, "Okay, hang on a minute. What if I just want to withdraw $10,000 to go to the casino tomorrow night and just have a great night, go to a fine dining restaurant, buy myself Louboutins and a Chanel bag, and, spend all my money, gamble it away. Okay, it's my money. I can do whatever I want." And then she looks at the lady next to her at the teller, and then that lady, she steps in and she goes, "We wouldn't be able to give you $10,000 if you were going to the casino." I go, "Why not?" And she goes, "There's a lot of scams out there and we just need to protect you from being reckless." I was just dumbfounded. I was like, "Excuse me?" I go, "It's my money. I can flush it down the toilet if I like." I go, "So what's the limit? What's the maximum I can withdraw without proof and without invoices or whatever?" And she goes, "Well, you can withdraw $2,000 at the ATM and $2,000 at a teller. So maximum $4,000 a day, no questions asked." I go, so anything over $4,000, they need a reason. I go, "Well, I've given you a reason. I'm building." And she goes, "Yeah, but if that large amount of money, $20,000, we're going to need invoices or quotes or proof." I go, "What if I just want to buy a Rolex?" And she goes, "Well, we need the invoice." I go, "Well, the freaking Rolex is not going to give me an invoice if I haven't purchased it." I was like, "What?" And she goes, and the guy behind me, who was just shaking his head, I was in disbelief. I was like, because I haven't withdrawn money from the bank in a long time, right? I've not had to use that much cash in a long time, so I haven't withdrawn any money. And so I was like, when did this new rule come out? And I go, "Is this just CBA?" And she goes, "No, this is all banks." I mean, this is such a joke. Why are the banks holding our money hostage? It's our hard-earned money. Why do we have to give proof and evidence and receipts to access our own money? It's ridiculous. I'm about to change banks. I've been with CBA for over 20 years, and I'm so angry. So somebody tell me they know a bank that doesn't ask questions, because this is just invading our privacy. We can't spend our own hard-earned money. What a joke.
Yes, look, yes, I want to withdraw my money, all of it now, please. Sorry, it's 10 cents. That's all I have to my name. What? Goodbye. How ridiculous. That's not a real call, by the way. It's just called make-believe. You may not understand that. You might think I was being real, but it was just a make-believe call. I haven't got 10 cents. I'm not that rich. So there you are. But it's a terrible imposition on a customer. First of all, you get other people behind you. It's like, oh, wow. What about yesterday? We're chatting about the Bendigo Bank in Cooper Pedy closed its doors, so they have to drive 5.5 hours to their branch to deposit the cash. And there's a stretch that's about, I think, 2 hours or 2.5 hours without any mobile phone coverage. And they're quite worried that people will be along that way and they can rob those cars coming from Cooper Pedy if they can work out that car is from a particular business, because they're going to be carrying cash to deposit in their branch 5.5 hours away. And then in Queenstown, in Tasmania, the same thing. They're shutting their branch down, and it is actually making money. And it's the nearest branch is about 2.5 hours away, and a terrible drive. It's a very dangerous drive. So banks are, I think, they're falling in lockstep with government, with the world. The new world order, and I think going to be in all sorts of trouble. If, for example, look at censorship. If I want to turn on TV the internet and watch a cricket thing, or I want to watch a cooking thing, or I want to watch how David Richards works, it'll be a very, very long video, that one, because he's a very hard worker, as you know. Besides, he'll buy you a beer. But all those things. And what I will need, though, is I will need age verification. Just think about it. I mean, you have no rights. And if you log in with your biometrics, you're going to be, they will know that what you are doing just about every move, from tracking your phone to your internet browsing, logging in, the amount of times you log in, and so forth. And banks, they will be notifying. I think there's a limit. I think it's about $10,000 or something. But anything over that, they will notify the government, and under that too, they still will notify the government. This is what you're taking out, so they know everything. And when you have the digital IDs or the digital currency, the digital impasse on us all, you're going to find that not only in Australia, but the UK, other Western countries who base the foundation of Western civilization is on freedom of choice. And you have none. It is gone. And if you look at our government here, they're just woeful. Julie Inman-Grant, for example, I think is a terrible example of democracy and free speech, privacy, and so on. She is the exact opposite to what we need. Cam, can you play Aussies?
I believe that over time, facial age estimation, liveness tests, and other forms of age assurance will become normalized as well. Different people at different ages will have different levels of comfort with things like taking selfies or using biometrics or even digital ID. It really varies.
So there you are. Dr. David Richards is an Australian general practitioner and adjunct professor at an Australian university in the Faculty of Medicine, also is a co-founder of Australians for Science and Freedom, and he's as we would say in Australia for the Americans, this is your Australian English lesson, he's a beaut bloke. There you are. In other words, a good egg. In other words, a terrific person. David, thanks for joining us.
That's a pleasure, Mike. Great to see you in the flesh. Well, not quite in the flesh, but
No.
I look forward to that day.
I think I'll have to buy you a beer next. Probably that's why I'm hiding.
I think that's what the problem is. Yes.
Yeah, but you never stop at 10. Look, let's talk about the age verification for of those under 16. So anybody that logs on, you've got to, they've got to verify if you are. I think it's under 16. So therefore, no matter how old you are, they're going to know exactly your browsing history, where you've been. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, because for example, Julie Inman-Grant demanded that Australians were not allowed to see on socials, were not allowed to see the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Entire world did see the shooting of Charlie Kirk, and I think there are many other ways if you want to see it, and it was terrible thing. But that alone is just censorship. It's for your own good, so we're not going to let you see it. What right does Julie Inman-Grant, Anthony Albanese, or anybody have the right to tell you what to do with your life?
Well, I always think it's so appropriate that an American is telling Australians how to operate their system, isn't it? You know, it's extraordinary. And look, Mike, I'm wearing two extra hats here because not only am I involved with Australians for Science and Freedom, but I'm also a local coordinator for the Mental Health Professional Network. And you know, on the one hand, it's true that Australia's got a real problem with mental health in the youth, and it's also true that social media is a component that is driving those mental health problems. However, the solution, as is proposed at the moment, is solving one problem, and it will have a positive impact on mental health in the youth short term. But it's going to create 5 other major problems for Australia, and that is the erosion of privacy because of the impact on youth biometric data and digital footprints that are going to be captured. It's going to drive teens to migrate to VPNs, burner accounts, and unregulated apps, which is going to create a black market in digital platforms in Australia, which so it's going to be counterproductive in that respect. Third, it's going to lead to a collapse in trust. Families will see some benefits in controlling their children, but eventually it's going to be seen as government intrusion. It's going to lead to a supplicant generation, you know, generational change where young individuals who are entering the adult world have been suppressed in terms of their views and their freedom of speech and so forth. And so that's inviting a complete collapse of sovereignty in Australia into the future. And of course, it's interesting, isn't it, that she's going to America to speak to the big tech companies in America about how this is operating. But if she's fair dinkum about the mental health of children in Australia, the person she should be speaking to while she's in America is Jonathan Haidt, who has written extensively about the effect of social media in children. He's probably accepted as one of the world experts in the effects of digital platforms on children, on the youth, on mental health issues. He should be the person who should be guiding Australian policy on digital platforms, not the tech companies who've got a vested interest in manipulating our children.
I totally agree. But are you able just to come a bit closer, David? Just you're a bit distant.
Sorry. Yes, of course. Of course.
That's good. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, Julie Inman-Grant, she's got a really interesting history. I mean, she has been associated through various causes with the CIA, and that alone is a concern. But if you wanted someone to set up a surveillance system and to make sure that the government knows exactly what you're doing, you'd go. It's like going to Bunnings or to a builder to build a house because he knows how to do it. If you want someone to do surveillance, you go to probably the leading intel org in the world, or one of the leading ones, and you go to the CIA. And she has magnificent abilities to actually stifle free speech, and she is going to stifle the whole thing. I don't think people understand that in Australia, from December onwards, this country has changed. And for example, if you don't like what government is saying or doing, and you voice your opinion, and it may be a little colourful at times, they can stop you, and they will stop you. If you look at what happened during COVID, they did stop you. And if you look at the emails from government to the social media platforms, the government was very enthusiastic, very keen to stop you. So, so once December comes around in Australia, we will then go down a path, I see, it will start off fairly slowly. Oh, how wonderful this is. And within a few months, you're going to have all sorts of things brought in. And if you look at the UK, the same thing is happening with them. Anthony Albanese is sprouting that Europe is following the same path as Australia. And they were super impressed that he was so clever in what he's doing. And in fact, he's so clever, he's off to the United Nations next week to explain his brand new philosophy. It's called censorship. And so what? If there was CCP have had the same thing and all sorts of communist regimes, his is brand new because it works better. And people think, though, they still have freedom of speech and freedom of movement and stuff, and they don't. And this is all designed. How do we stop it? How do we take control of our lives, David? Because you, for example, are in a very controlled industry, and if you burp sideways, you're in trouble. So how do we maintain some sort of presence in that particular field, such as, in our case, society, yet at the same time take back our basic rights and freedoms?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, Mike. And look, these policies are not new. I mean, they're very similar to the policies that were introduced in South Korea a few years back. And within 3 to 5 years, those policies were repealed. And my projections are that this is going to cause so much unrest in Australia that they are not sustainable in the long term, and they will be repealed because basically, well, this kind of policy has operated previously and been shown to fail repeatedly. So, Neil Woods wrote about the war on drugs in the UK. They launched a very similar approach, a repressive approach. And at every stage, the criminals, the drug lords, outpaced the police, and eventually it led to an arms race where the stakes got higher and higher and higher, and eventually the policy failed completely. And his book, Good Cop, Bad War, is a perfect template for what's going to happen in Australia. And so I think that the policy is doomed to itself. It's rather like it's really a form of digital prohibition. It's almost identical to the tactics that were used in 100 years ago in America, and the fallout from those from prohibition a century ago still echoes in American society today with criminalizations and so forth. It's going to lead to criminalization in Australia. What it's going to lead to is normal behavior being criminalized. And, 50 years ago, Prince Philip predicted that pretty soon we won't be able to do anything without infringing one law or another. So it's going to lead to a total erosion of civil rights in Australia. And I've done some modelling on this, and the prediction is that at the grassroots, people are going to react to it, because basically we've seen these kind of events previously in history. For example, the British occupation of Northern Ireland, which reached a peak with the Bloody Sunday massacres. I mean, obviously that was violence. We're not talking about violence here, but the process is the same. What happened was the impact of those draconian measures in Northern Ireland fueled 50 years of sectarian violence in Northern Ireland. And so, the government is asking for trouble if it introduces these kind of policies, because we've got history on our side to show that it's going to lead to social unrest and reaction.
Yeah, there's no details on what sort of tools will be used by platforms and how effective they will be, and there's a lot of doubt on how effective they will be. The Guardian, which is, if you could ever believe the Guardian, but they've said that they've indicated that this technology has biases and miscategorization problems. I'm shocked that they would even think that government would have biases. I mean, that's just a terrible thing to say. I mean, government has biases. They love us all. They're here to excuse me as I vomit. But it's true. They're just a terrible, terrible bunch of people. And look at the what's her name? The shadow communications minister in Australia. She She said on camera that government needs to control the internet. We need to make it safe. Well, if government is going to control the internet, how are they going to make it safe? They're just going to tell us crap. But there you are. Government needs to control the internet, and they're not alone. Look at the UK. Even look at in the US with Pam Bondi when she said we're going to stamp out hate speech. Well, hate speech is that's subject to that, to the individual or the group of people who are going to go after you and jail you for hate speech. If they're going to control that online. They can do whatever they like. They might have something that you don't like to hear. You say, I hate hearing that. So there's your hate speech. So governments around the world, whether they pretend to or not, are wanting to control what we say online.
That's right. And look, this is going to lead to increasing marginalization of small groups, the very people that this government is supposedly defending, the LGBT community, the ASD community, who are totally very dependent on access to internet services to keep them balanced. So it's going to create problems for these people, and it's going to put a huge burden on parents who have been asked to patrol and police their own children's behavior. I mean, that's going to work well, isn't it? But there's a precedent as well for this kind of draconian overreach, because in 2007 there was an incident where a Treasury official left a briefcase on the trains in the UK. It was 2 CDs. They contained 2 CDs of unencrypted National Health Service data containing information on 26 million people in the UK, including their personal data and all other NHS data, basically. And so, government, do we really trust government to contain and control this information, given the level of competence we've seen from governments over the years? I mean, there's a precedence for this, that the UK people trusted their government to keep themselves safe or keep themselves protected, and it was disastrous. You couldn't imagine a worse consequence.
Yeah, I'm just thinking also all this is for your own good. It's for safety. Look after those children. Tell me this, as a absolutely magnificent GP, as a doctor, I'm saying the right things here. What happened to parenting? I mean, it seems like, that's too hard. It'd be like something, for example, I'm worried about my child. It's playing on the highway or the freeway, and I'm scared that Billy might get run over. And you'd say, well, why don't you be a good parent and get Billy to play, unless it's intentional, and get Billy to play in the backyard instead of, and the same thing with the internet. Parents need to start looking after the children, becoming more part of a family unit instead of being 2 adults or 1 adult or 3 adults, whatever you want to, depends on their relationship, and the children. I mean, they're all individuals. And I always thought a family was collectively one person or one unit with a number of individuals in it. So why don't, surely the parents, instead of having, and this is a sort of a cop-out, sort of Trojan horse, because it will get into everybody's computer. They can start dictating what we do and see and blah, 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 blah. Why don't we get parents just to become parents?
Well, absolutely. It's so true, because as we all know, governments know much more about how to look after our own children than parents do, of course. And I'm much more trusted with the decisions on the health of our kids. There's a really good model here. Norway has introduced a system which is concentrated on building robustness in children. I mean, we're not Luddites here. We don't want to drive our children into obscurity and become the ignorant people of the world. We want them to access information and be free to be able to explore the things that they want to. And Norway has adopted a totally different approach to this, where it's empower parents. It's concentrated on improving the skills and the understanding of the children in terms of the management of social media. It's not discouraged the use of social media. Quite the contrary, it's given the individuals, the children, the skills to be able to make better decisions. And they've communicated with various platforms and all the rest of it to ensure access and better utilization. So it's the same old recipe that this government is turning out: suppression and control rather than education, support. I mean, who are the government working for? They're working for the people, or they're working for the tech companies? You know, who has given this government the mandate? It's supposed to be a democratic society, and if we are truly a democratic society, government needs to come to the stakeholders. It needs to talk to people on the ground, and this is a family issue, and they should be, and families are stakeholders in this matter, and the government should be listening to family people, experts like Jonathan Haidt, and trying to create a system that is fair dinkum, designed to protect our next generation, and not just work as a sledgehammer to control and destroy the ingenuity and the intelligence and the creativity of our youth.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's I feel quite distressed with government at the moment. If you look at what's happening to the farmers, whether it's in Australia, the UK, not so much although more private company wise in the US, but in Australia, UK, it's government imposition on farmers. They can come and do what they like, come onto the land. They can put power lines, do whatever they want to do. And then we have, even in Queensland with the fire ant problem they have, they just walk into people's properties and destroy people's lives with this poison they put onto the ground. And you can kill it very naturally with hot water. Heaven forbid, it's much cheaper than. And then you have all the other impasses that are placed on the Australian society, and we have this thing here now that they're trying to. Or they're telling us that surveillance will become part of the norm. Truly, I think that the West is becoming undone very quickly, and to have the same thing in the US with Pam Bondi saying that we're going to stamp out hate speech. I mean that we go right back to censorship personified on steroids. So we need to stop this. I don't know how we are going to stop it. I think the first thing that needs to happen is that the individuals, you, me, parents, need to start going back, maybe taking a few steps back, and society, first of all, looking at the facts, taking out the emotions, and becoming adults. That would help.
Yeah.
David, if somebody wants to find out more about you and your organisations, how do they do that?
Well, I'm on the board of the Australians for Science and Freedom. This subject touches the core of our ethos. We are trying to protect the citizens' rights of Australians and the freedoms. Our organisation is asf.com.au. Look, we would welcome people to contact us, I also would invite Julian Inman Grant to come and talk to us. We would be more than happy to talk to her about taking a balanced approach, show some of the modelling we've done, and then we can try to prevent this path to disaster.
Good luck on that one. If you have any elected, I'll buy you. There you are. That's how confident I am. Look, it's always a pleasure. Just quickly, just a left field question. You are training for the Olympics. You keep telling us. How is that going?
Triathlon World Championships, ITU World Championships. Yeah, look, I won the over 65 kilometer race at Wynnum the other day. I was the only one in my age category, Mike. So at this point in time, there's not a lot of competition out there in us oldies. We're sort of, I managed to do it without my Zimmer frame as well. So I got there.
So what's these called? The Masters? What is it?
It's the International it's the International Triathlon Union. And I've done it once before. I did it in 2015. Went to Chicago and wore the green and gold, wore the Australian colours, And I told my father, I said, Dad, guess what? I've been picked and selected to represent Australia in the Triathlon World Championships in Chicago. And he said to me, oh, how come you didn't get selected for Wales then, he said. And no, not well done, not well done. So yeah, there's age group, it's the age group classifications, and look, I'm putting it out there. I'm going to give it a go. My son has challenged me, and I can't let him defeat me.
And it's amazing too. I mean, the Olympics, I think they do the marathon in a couple of hours, and because of the age difference, they've allowed that the marathon, instead of a couple of hours, you have 2.5 weeks to do it. And that's
how long it will take me.
and if you get an Uber, no one tells.
That's right.
So I owe you 78 beers now. It's terrible. Dr. David Richards, thank you very much for your time.
We're today's news talk, the world today.
And welcome back. Before we get into our next guest, and this is a great, it's part of this conversation. I want to play this because there are so many, just absolutely so many conspiracy theories out there at the moment, floating around about the shooting of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Cam, could you play a rifle?
On this episode of You Might Be a Dumb Motherfucker, this is my rifle. It takes 2 different tools to take it apart. It takes a Torx key and an Allen key. Now, if I take a shot and immediately disassemble this, I have to remove the bolt, remove the magazine, grab my Allen key, hit the 2 bolts on the bottom, put those away in the Allen key, grab my Torx key, remove the scope, put everything in the backpack, make sure I have everything, and make my way downtown. Okay, which is going to take a lot longer for him than it is for me, especially because his fine-tuned motor function, something as simple as grabbing an Allen key to a little bolt, is going to be extremely impaired due to a dump of adrenaline throughout his bloodstream. An extreme elevated heart rate is going to make these fine-tuned skills extremely difficult. I mean, just for him to think and analyze of what needs to be done to disassemble this rifle and get away would be difficult. And we're not even going to touch the topic of him assembling the rifle on top of the roof, which if you reassemble a rifle and you take a cold dead shot, it's not going to be 100% accurate. Okay, or the fact that he disassembled this after taking a shot, which the rifle's going to be hot and they found no gloves. There's just so many inconsistencies. It just makes zero sense. I mean, I'm still working on this and I have taken this rifle apart 1,000 times. And now he has to put the pieces of the rifle into a backpack. And this is a gigantic backpack. Shout out Wolfpack, best backpacks on the fucking planet. Anyways, as you can see, this barrel, broken down, does not fit in this backpack. And this is a big boy, way bigger than the one that he was carrying. Okay, I put the rifle stock in here and guess what? It doesn't fit. It sticks out. Now let's just say, for sake of argument, that he put these in his pant leg and he was walking. These are still so long broken down that he would not be able to walk straight. He wouldn't be able to bend his legs. Doesn't make fucking sense.
Well, there you are. I think you would have had more luck if you had a bazooka or a rocket launcher or something. Jason Goodman is an investigative journalist from Crowdsource the Truth.org, and his handle on X is Jason Goodman NYC. That's at Jason Goodman NYC. Jason, thanks for joining us. What do you think? Because there are so many theories out there. The only thing I haven't seen is that the aliens popped in and they shot him with a ray gun. But truly, everyone has got this theory that it was deep state, it was not deep state. The other one I haven't heard is that maybe it was Donald Trump that was trying to just miss his heart, keep him alive so that he'd become the next president. I mean, there's so many things out there. What are the facts?
Well, you just pointed out some facts right there. It doesn't seem like a rifle could have been disassembled on the roof and placed into a backpack or shoved down the guy's pants, where he then jumps off a building and runs down the street. None of that seems plausible. The other thing is, there's a lot of cameras there on campus at the Utah Valley University. There was a camera being operated by Turning Point USA right behind Charlie Kirk. We haven't seen any of that footage. So those are facts. Everything else remains pretty up in the air. I've been trying to sift through the available evidence to determine, you know, what we can figure out. I certainly haven't come to any conclusions apart from I'm fairly confident that this guy, Tyler Robinson, didn't do it.
I mean, and I heard that the bullet bounced, because I was always wondering how come he's at the front. He shoots the guy from being in front, and then the bullet did a right hand turn, went through his neck. But they said it bounced off his vest, his bulletproof vest. What a lot of good that was, if that is the truth. Things just don't make sense, do they? In Australia, they would say it doesn't pass the pub test. And what do you think?
Well, let me address that body armor bulletproof vest question. I'm not a ballistics expert. I'm not a firearms expert. I am American. I know probably a lot of our friends in Australia think I must have 50 guns, but I have very limited experience with guns. But you can see a lot of video on a lot of people's phones, and some of it is high quality, maybe even 4K, certainly HD. Before the shooting occurred, Charlie Kirk is seen walking around. He's throwing hats. He's wearing a T-shirt. Everybody sees it's now famous that says freedom. And it appears to be either cotton or maybe, rayon or some kind of body contouring kind of synthetic. It's like a sports shirt, It's sort of clinging to the contours of his body in a way that it looks very clear that there is no body armor under there. And for the sake of argument, there are some high-tech materials, certain like executive body armor that's designed for being worn under dress clothing or under a men's suit that aren't necessarily Kevlar plates and heavy armor and all that kind of stuff. But from what I understand, first of all, that wasn't there. It's not completely invisible under a single T-shirt. That's when you're wearing a dress shirt and a jacket over it. Then it can be pretty invisible. But that type of soft body armor is designed to prevent a low caliber bullet from penetrating. It really doesn't have the type of deflective capability that would cause something to bounce like that. So I don't believe that that's what happened. Been doing a lot of investigating. I work with a variety of different other investigators, John Cullen, Zeb Boykin, lots of different people. And those guys do have much more experience than I do in firearms. My expertise lies primarily in digital imaging and image processing. I had a long career in Hollywood as a visual effects and stereoscopic cinematographer. So my understanding of camera technology and image compression technology and sort of interpreting what it is that we're seeing in some of this digital evidence that everybody is flooded with today, that's really where my strong suit is. And so by working with these other experts, we can kind of combine our capabilities to sift through some of this material and try and decipher what is true.
And of course, though, you'll be able to use the footage from the drone. Hang on, there was no footage. I turned it off just as it. Oh,
well, let's talk about these drones, because this is a big question.
But it's a terrible thing that somebody would be tampering with the evidence.
Oh, well, yeah, you're talking about a camera. There's someone who is seen removing an SD memory card from a camera. And just before we came on air here, I haven't verified this myself, but I saw on X, someone said that the person who removed the SD memory card from the camera, we see this person removing it on somebody else's recording. That's apparently an employee of Turning Point USA. So if that's true, I would hope that we will eventually see that footage. That's a pretty high quality camera, it looks like, right behind Charlie Kirk, running conceivably the whole time. We should be able to see out into the crowd, depending on the focal length and view angle of the lens. We should be able to see if there's someone on the roof shooting at him, maybe even get a good idea of maybe not who it is, but what he's wearing. Is there more than one person up there? Because you just played a video that we did see someone who has some firearms expertise talking about the difficulty, or at least the minimum amount of time it would take an experienced user to disassemble that kind of rifle. And it doesn't seem to match the amount of time between the murder of Charlie Kirk and the time we see that individual jump off the roof from a video provided by the FBI that is alleged to be a surveillance camera video. A good question is, why did they just release the part where the guy is running off the roof? It's a pretty wide shot of the whole building. Do we see him climbing up the roof? Do we see him walking around on the roof and getting down there and shooting? Do we see anybody else on the roof? The FBI seems to lose these critical minutes of surveillance videos when they're looking at Jeffrey Epstein, when they're looking at people allegedly shooting people on the roof. It's quite strange, isn't it, Mike?
No, I think it is. I think it's, and for people to think otherwise, I think it's scurrilous. They need to go to confession quickly. Not really, but it's reality, isn't it? It is reality that government people, if you're guilty of doing something, you're going to try and do everything you can to hide the evidence, to distract and hopefully avoid some sort of investigation. I'm just thinking though that if it was Turning Point USA that were supposedly and just supposedly filming, and they removed the SD card from the camera, surely, I mean, if we're talking about it, surely the FBI and other intel orgs would know that too, and that would be tampering with the evidence.
Yeah.
And you could, I mean, from that alone, you could say, if that is true, was it from within Turning Point USA that they wanted Charlie Kirk to just go?
Well, I mean, I'm reluctant to jump to a conclusion like that. We don't know why somebody would remove that memory. Perhaps they were afraid the FBI would take it and they would never see it.
To hide the evidence.
Well, it could be, for sure. I mean, it's a valid question, but I want to just avoid coming to that conclusion, particularly since we've seen there's already some litigation. And I'm not fearful of litigation. I'm just saying, to be fair, I would presume first that the person doing that had an innocent motive, that they wanted to preserve the evidence. Now, obviously, every day that goes by that they don't release that footage, I do become suspicious of the person who took it out and why. But let's explore this as a point of speculation for a moment, because, you know, Turning Point USA was I believe it was a nonprofit organization, but a lot of money moved through that organization, and obviously it paid a large staff. I think it was an $80 or a $90 million a year organization, and obviously Charlie had risen to international fame. Now, Crowdsource the Truth, my operation, is very, very small by comparison, but even in this, and even in previous endeavors, business endeavors that I've been involved in, there are people with bad motives who attempt to insinuate themselves to take things from the proprietor, to try to steal the business, destroy the business, become the top dog in the business. And I certainly would have to at least explore the supposition that there might have been bad actors embedded around Charlie Kirk for their own self-interests, or perhaps motivated by outside parties. Obviously, Turning Point was very involved in politics, and there are a lot of dirty tricks that get played in American politics. They want to set people up, smear them. Charlie was gaining a lot of influence, and I think a lot of people feel, look, he was only 31. The guy, it's really a tragedy. The guy had a huge career ahead of him to have created something like this by the age of 31. I think there's little doubt that had he not been killed, he certainly could have run for Congress or eventually Senate or even president. And I think a lot of people felt that could have, and maybe even should have, happened, and perhaps parties that didn't want that could have participated. And if someone wanted to kill Charlie Kirk, certainly infiltrating his organization, getting close to him and gaining his trust would be a way that a sophisticated, sinister party would do it.
Yeah, and the other question is too, sure, removing the SD card from a camera that's behind the shooter, why was the camera there in the first place?
Well, you know, they do a lot of media. Charlie goes around the country speaking to students on campus and doing live streams, and they're constantly putting out videos. So he had a lavalier microphone clipped to his shirt, and I presume they were recording the event to put it on their social media channels and their YouTube channels. And I've been to parties and events that they've done, and they have big screens showing video content from all the things they do throughout the year. So I'm sure he had a whole media department whose job it is just record whatever he's doing, get those viral moments, put them out on the internet so that they can spread their word and grow their organization.
And very much it could have been that way. But I'm just thinking though, okay, so if you're saying that this is the cameras there, shooters in that frame, also Charlie's in that frame, surely they'd notice someone with a gun near their camera, because you know what cameras are worth. I mean, they're not cheap, especially good ones. From that distance, you're going to need some good visuals. So therefore, they're not. Here's this. Imagine this: beautiful camera. Oh, don't worry about anybody there. No one's going to steal it. And they would steal it. So that you always have someone watching that camera to make sure no one's going to steal it.
I've done a lot of event production and broadcast work and things like that. So, I think the camera was safe because it was behind Charlie in this sort of controlled area that the general public couldn't really get to, while the event was under control. Obviously, after the bedlam, maybe they might have had that concern, take the camera down, get the memory so somebody doesn't steal it. But what I would say is, keep in mind, $80 or $90 million a year is a lot of money, but this is one individual event, and it wasn't the type of production budget that you would expect from something like ESPN or ABC News or a national broadcaster in Australia. These weren't manned cameras or personed cameras, excuse me, I don't want to get misgendered or whatever, but these weren't cameras with operators on them necessarily. And I will say, sometimes when you're out in the field, it's daytime, there's a lot of light reflecting on screens, you don't necessarily see all the details on screen while you're live that the average person might expect you to see. And certainly after the fact, when you're in the editing room, almost always you're going to notice things in the frame that you might have missed on the day, as they say, when you're rolling. So to speculate along with you, Mike, it is my opinion, yes, it is highly suspicious and worthy of suspicion. And the person who took that memory card from the camera should be, if they haven't already been, questioned by law enforcement. And frankly, it's tampering with a crime scene. So if they do not immediately cooperate by providing that footage, if they say it's lost, it's deleted, I would think, I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that's a prosecutable bit of action to take the memory of a recording of a murder. That's a big deal. And you know what? In court, I do believe if you tamper with and destroy evidence, it does allow you to take what's called an adverse supposition. You can presume that the only reason to do that is that the evidence on there was incriminating to the party who took it.
But the other thing too is, again, all scuttlebutt. Of course, when they found Robinson, there was, the SWAT squad were there. There were 400 police, helicopters, even a tank. And hang on, no, they let him give himself up. I take that back. So they let him give himself up. Truly, the whole thing is orchestrated. If you're going after, can you tell me, in the history of mankind, when have they said, look, we know you shot someone, he's a very famous person, you talk about it with your folks first, and then when you've come to a decision, we're waiting for you out. Just come to the police station, we'll give you the respect you deserve. That is living in the land of fairies.
I agree with you. It's very implausible. Now, Mike, tonight's the first time you and I have ever met, but you look to be about the same age as me. I presume you grew up in Australia. I don't know how much you know about the JFK assassination, but I've studied it quite a bit. It happened before I was born, but I was very intrigued by it. For most of my life, it was a pretty isolated incident. I mean, we also have the Robert Kennedy assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination, but those are generally far less studied by even American historians. And I think what's happening now is, particularly in the wake of the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt against Donald Trump, and now this Charlie Kirk assassination, we start to have this kind of body of evidence. So if we start, let's just start with the JFK assassination. We've got this guy, Lee Harvey Oswald, who's captured in a movie theater watching a movie an hour after the incident. And right away, they say, oh, we've got the guy. And he tells the police, these were the early days of live video and news coverage, and on a film reel, he tells the police, I didn't shoot anybody. I'm a patsy. A lot of people might not know this, but it wasn't 1910, it was 1963. They did have paraffin chemical tests to determine if somebody had fired a gun, and the Dallas police tested Oswald and determined he did not fire a rifle that day. So it's this rush to judgment for a patsy. And when I say, people might have flinched or cringed, or I don't know the nature of your audience's response to the types of things I would say, but if people had a negative reaction to me saying that I don't think that Tyler Robinson did it, what I'm saying is I think he's a stand-in and a patsy and a fall guy for whoever actually did it, just like Lee Harvey Oswald was, just like Thomas Crooks was in Butler, Pennsylvania. There's a large amount of evidence that each of these individuals were not the criminal perpetrators. And frankly, the video that you played at the top of this discussion with the guy talking about the disassembly of the rifle is in and of itself a piece of evidence that Tyler Robinson didn't do it because he just simply didn't have the time. We don't see a guy running with a gun, throw the gun off the roof, jump down off the roof. By the way, they played early, I haven't seen this very much since, but on the day that Charlie was shot, they played a video of Tyler Robinson on somebody's home, doorbell cam, their security camera, where he's walking through the neighborhood and he's limping. And the explanation was, oh, well, that's because he's got the rifle shoved down his pants. I'm thinking, really? It's not because he jumped off the roof of a building? Who could do that and not be injured? It seems like a big jump to me.
It was a very tall building. I mean, in many cases, he would have broken his back or his leg. So
you'd think.
I think what saved him was the grass. I think it sort of cushioned him a bit. But you're going to hurt yourself, your ankle. A natural thing is your ligaments will stretch.
Right.
As we wind this up, and I've enjoyed this immensely, do you think we'll ever know the truth?
I don't. I think we'll get close to it, and it's not going to come from the government. It's going to come from the type of research that I'm doing on Crowdsource the Truth and the people who come on my show and the other guests that you have on your show that we talk about. We're going to look at this evidence. People have become very sophisticated. I do want to touch on one thing. You had spoken about drone footage at the beginning of this, and we are starting to hear that Turning Point might have had a drone in the sky at one point. That's a possibility. If I may, I'd like to just show you something very quickly that I discovered. Do we have a moment for this?
Yep, sure. Yep.
So this is something that I discovered. Looks like an item smoking in the sky. And then we've got something else that flies by. It just zips right by in the frame. Let me step through this for your viewers here. There's one thing that looks to me like a UAV with some lithium ion lithium polymer batteries that are about to catch fire. And then we have this thing. It's got wings, so maybe it's a bird, but can a bird shoot vertically, in a diagonal without flapping its wings? I don't see any wings flapping there. And the thing is going from the middle of the frame up to off the top corner. We do have certain types of falcons in Utah, but those generally can only move that quickly when they're diving downward. They don't shoot upward like that super quickly. So there's some questions about what sort of technology was around in the sky. And to be clear, I'm not saying that these drones were used in the killing of Charlie Kirk, I think they might have been surveillance drones. They might have been electronic warfare drones to disable unauthorized. And when I say unauthorized, just people recording it. We had a live streamer whose live stream was disabled 1 second before Charlie Kirk was shot. That's Adam Bartholomew. If he hadn't been recording on his iPad simultaneously, we would not have seen any of this drone footage or anything. And I suspect a Bluetooth low energy exploit was used to disable the live stream the moment before the shot was fired.
We're going way over, but I'm interested. Explain what you mean by that.
So there was an exploit discovered by an IT security company called Oligo Security, and they announced this in April. Now, just a few days ago, this was actually after the 10th of September, there was an update to iOS that might have fixed this, but this is telling us that there is a zero-click remote code execution defect, an exploit that can be used to penetrate an iOS device like an iPhone or an iPad or anything running the Apple AirPlay protocol or any of these various things. And what they can do is this exploit can overwhelm the device with Bluetooth requests, cause it to crash, cause it to do all kinds of unexpected things. And like I said, things that could be UAV drones are seen flying around. This guy, Adam Bartholomew, he's got a son who goes to Utah Valley University. He was live streaming. His live stream cut about 1 second before the shot was fired. The SD card in his camera failed. He had a third redundant backup recording going to an iPad. He's a very clever guy, to an iPad in his backpack. And because that was connected by a USB wire, it continued recording. So this Bluetooth wireless exploit can't affect the wired recording, but this is a known exploit that a professional IT security company told us about in April, didn't get patched until like yesterday. And Charlie Kirk was shot over a week ago. So I suspect that electronic warfare was being deployed on the crowd to reduce the possibility that anybody might record video of what is going on. And now we've had this very controlled release of videos. We don't see the video behind Charlie. They probably didn't want us to see Adam Bartholomew's video. We've had a couple of low resolution, very poor quality videos that were released that really in many ways are not suitable for, forensic evaluation to determine what happened.
It's absolutely fascinating. I could talk all day. I can't. I'll be in trouble. Invitation, come back again. Let's look at more of these things. Because all that we're hearing from government or the police or the FBI, it's all open to conjecture, for want of a better word.
Scrutiny.
It could be anything. And the only thing the government haven't suggested is that alien craft that they think is heading towards Earth, maybe they got here early.
Yeah.
I'd show you that. But from what the government is telling us and the police are telling us, that would have as much weight as what they're telling us. You think the FBI have had enough practice in lying to the public, and they still can't do it properly. But for releasing information, they may not, and it might, as you said, we may never know the full story and exactly who did it. Was it the butler? Always a pleasure, Jason. What am I saying? Always a pleasure. First time, it is a pleasure. And I would love to do this again and look at more aspects of the Charlie Kirk assassination and look at maybe why government does this. Why, for example, did an organisation want him gone? It wasn't the individual. Why did they want him gone? Look at the Donald Trump almost assassination when they got him in the ear. Why are these things happening? There are many times a logical reason for it. We just got to find that reason. Jason Goodman, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
They can go to my website at crowdsourcethetruth.org. I'm also on X at the address that you mentioned, at Jason Goodman NYC. My main Crowdsource the Truth account on X is at JG, like Jason Goodman, underscore CSTT, like Crowdsource the Truth. And Mike, thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you.
And likewise too. It's just absolutely fantastic. Jason Goodman here on The World Today.